Hey guys, it's your teacher here, Mr. D. I want to welcome you to another great lesson. Today we're going to be learning about the empires of Europe and the age of colonization. This is meant to be more of an overview before we go deeper into this subject later in the course. So our main objectives for today's lesson are going to be to understand why the empires of Europe needed their raw materials. We're going to understand what kind of position this need for raw materials put the empires of Europe in, as far as having to travel far distances in search of these materials. And we're also going to put ourselves and analyze how the people who lived in these places that they were getting the raw materials from, what was the impact of their lives, as well as any other things that could be happening as a result of Europeans coming to their lands and trying to get these raw materials. We're also going to try to apply this knowledge that we're learning and put ourselves in the position of traders who are looking for materials to sell back in Europe, as well as looking for areas to get these materials. And hopefully that's going to be able to, we're going to form groups for that, and hopefully that's going to create some fun dynamics. And at the end of this lesson, you guys will synthesize short essays about your experiences and how well you understood it. This is going to help me assess how effective this exercise is for you guys. So I really appreciate your cooperation in that. So our warm-up questions for the day, and I just want you guys to write out answers to this real quick, are: why were the empires of Europe so successful? What do we already know about this period of history? What are some of the reasons that Europeans left their continent during this time period? And if you guys know any other background information about what was going on around the world at this time, I'd love for you to include that. All right, guys. Now, the first topic I want to get into today is: what is colonialism? Colonialism refers to when a power, meaning a state or a nation, holds an area where people dependent on itself. Now, what we generally mean when we say that is the idea that settlers are exchanging raw materials for finished goods and services, such as furniture. But what it could also refer to is captive populations that the European empires tried to form into labor forces. Now, the empires of Europe found colonialism to be very valuable because it afforded them access to many materials that they couldn't get in Europe because of their scarcity or the rarity, or simply they didn't have the climate for it. So, in order to obtain these materials, they sent out colonists to settle and form communities in new lands. Now, generally, these are people who were promised by the provincial government some sort of land parcel in exchange for their service, be it over a set amount of years or simply just as a citizen of the area. However, settling was not as easy a job as some might make it seem. Many communities died out or were eradicated by locals. Alright, class, I want you just to take a look at the linked video on the side, and we will stop the video at the 1 minute and 45 seconds point. You don't really need to proceed past that point, but you can if you'd like. Some things I want you to keep in mind while you're watching the video. How would these people be traveling to and from the places that they are coming from and going to? What kind of journeys might they be on? What might they be doing with their families? Are they? Do you think people would leave behind their families on a trip like this? Do you think they would bring them with them? Think about how the area that's marked as claimed quickly becomes marked as imperial territory or as autonomous imperial territory. But notice how much of the claimed land also remains unclaimed. This is because of simple geographical things, but think about what might be geographically in that area where there's a certain area that's unclaimed or seems difficult to get into. So we briefly touched on this topic a little bit earlier in the lesson. I want to talk about industrialization and why that was such a big factor in driving the Europeans to colonialism. Now, industrialization is a huge topic. I could do a whole lesson on just industrialization, and in the future we probably will. But for now, what we can understand industrialization as is the process through which people began to mass produce goods through the use of factories and machines. Before this period in history, most goods were produced by hand by artisans and craftsmen who took many years to train and become better and better at their craft. However, as industrialization ramped up, many of these goods became easier and easier to mass produce through machines. So now, goods that had once been reserved for rich people because they were extremely expensive were now becoming more and more proliferated into the market. However, because the speed of production increased, it required much more raw materials in order to keep up with the raw production capacity that the new factories allowed. This was a huge factor, and this is one of the main things that drove the Europeans to leave their continent and look for new sources of raw materials around the world. I want you to put yourself in the shoes of somebody from back then. How would you deal with this problem of needing more and more raw materials? Would you think of that as a reason to abandon industrialization, or do you think that the benefits outweigh the negatives? All right, class, we've reached the activity portion of our lesson. So what we're going to do is I'm going to break all of the students up into groups. I'm going to give each group a commodity, and it's going to be up to your group members and yourself to do research on your commodity, find out what geographical location you would want to go to get it, find out what kind of hardships you might endure trying to get there, and what you would get for getting that. In what parts of the world would this commodity be popular? Where could you go and resell it? This is all stuff I want to see. I really want to, at the end, you guys are going to be choosing someone to present your findings. And some things I want to see highlighted in your presentation are where you would go, what kind of hardships you would face, and I want you guys to really take a minute to think about what would happen to you if you really went to this place. Would you be treated nicely by the natives? What do you think your interactions with them would be? Once we're done, I'm going to want to move into the next portion of our class. Please keep your notes from this activity because we're going to be utilizing it for the take-home assignment. All right, guys, now that we're all finished with our presentations, we're going to go ahead and talk a little bit more about the homework. Now, I want you to save your notes from the activity we did today and your research as well. And we're going to do short paragraph answers for the following questions. What was your experience with your group? Did you feel like working together with your classmates was effective? Do you feel like you really learned the material from doing this? What would your experience be like if you were a settler? Where would you want to settle? Could you foresee any problems that might occur? And finally, I want you to analyze if you were a native of a country that was colonized, how would that make you feel? Would you be open to people settling in your area, or would you be unhappy that they were coming there? This is some really great work we've done today, guys. I want to thank you guys all for your participation in the activity. I just want to see a lot of detail from these answers because I really want to get a great idea of where you guys are at right now with the material. This is not going to be graded except for completion, so please, if you didn't enjoy the activity, please make sure you denote it with me, and because that's the only way I'm going to be able to improve this lesson for the future. Thank you guys again, and have a wonderful day.